In today's video, we're going to put this knockoff Amazon TrueCool 40K cooler on my Corvette because we like saving money. So at first glance, looking at this TrueCool 40K compared to the engine bay on the Corvette, this thing is mighty big. So we're really going to have to figure out a way to make this thing fit. I haven't found any write-ups online about how to make this exact cooler fit. Some people put them in the bumper, some people mount them to the rear diff with a fan, but I think just by looking at it right off the bat, I think we're going to install it in front of the condenser right behind this plastic piece here, and we'll take all this apart and we'll see how we can fit it and see what kind of problems we're going to run into. So after pulling this cover back and looking at that, we're definitely going to have to back this thing out and spray that out before I put a trans cooler in there. Look at that. I bet that's all original. Never been cleaned. Look at all that gunk. So if you're going to do this, I highly advise you spray this thing out. That's ridiculous. But Corvettes are bottom feeders, so... Well, I'm not saying she's perfect, but she's clean. Spewing water all behind it, so look at that. Nicked damn cheap radiator. Should flow a lot better. Now that that's clean, let's take this filter off and see what we can accomplish here. Yeah, that looks factory. No, I don't think it is. I'm just going to pull on it. Feels like it wants to come out. Well, I got a better idea. Instead of taking everything apart, what if we just kind of do-dally something to hold this bad guy back? Then we can figure out a mounting strategy. Let's do that. Well, after some do-dallying, we figured out how to hold the plastic cover back. All you got to do is get you a cheap old strap and attach it to something pretty sturdy. That way you can pull it back from your condenser. Then what we figured out is we're going to put our trans cooler all the way down at the bottom. There is two, looks to be aluminum posts that hold the radiator condenser on. So that trans cooler cannot fall down. So what we're going to do is we're just going to lay this thing here and we're going to fix it to the bottom of the car to where it can't move, shift around and all that good stuff, and then we're going to hook it up. And on this trans cooler, you want the post to be up because it's not a, dang on it, what's the word for it? gravity fed, yada, 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 whatever bullshit. Anyways, if you put the things down, it's only going to fill the cooler halfway with trans fluid. You're only going to get half of your cooling power. If you flip them up, you will get all of your cooling power. It will fill the cooler all the way up. It'll cool through all the fins, and you'll get a better flow. So we're going to get on that. So we've decided to mount the cooler right here, as you can see, right in front of the AC condenser. And then let me hop under here and show you. So here's our trans cooler. It's gonna sit pretty much, I don't know if you could tell, but it's basically gonna take in all the air, which is a good thing. And we are going to run a self-tapper through this into this bar. So now, I mean, that's stupid simple. Anybody can do that. You got these bars supporting it, and then you'll have a self-tapper in each bracket fixing it to the car. So that's not going to go anywhere. So that's what we're going to do. And as you can tell, you got plenty of airflow. And I've had good luck with these coolers, so I'd say this is going to work just fine. And instead of getting too crazy with our trans lines, I'll show you exactly where we're going to cut them. We're just going to go right here. And of course, they always leak right here on these fittings. But if you're looking at the engine on the passenger side, your trans line's going to the radiator. We're just going to cut right here and run our new lines to the transcooler itself. So that should be straightforward. Using our cheap cutter from Harbor Freight, we finally got the first line cut off, as you can see there. So disconnect it from the radiator. Then of course it connected into that. So that right there is where we're going to make one of our connections. Now let's get this other one cut. Alright, now that we got the second one cut there, basically we'll clean that up just a hair and make sure it's wiped off and no metal shavings or debris on it. That's going to be where we tie in to run our knockoff 40K. That way we're not messing with anything under the car. We'll make it as simple as we can. So now we'll go ahead and pull our cooler out, since we know where we're going to mount it now. Go ahead and yank this thing out. Let me set you down. Alright, let's reposition this camera here. Now we'll go ahead and get our 40K prep. Pop these dudes out. Lose the gloves. I like to add just a little bit of this thread tape, and I don't ever have any issues when I do this. So you're going to have a lot of people tell you not to get this cooler, but you're also going to have just as many people tell you that they've used it in multiple different applications and they're just fine. So get you a 17mm wrench. You don't have to go crazy on these things. Just get them snug. All right, now we'll just place this back in the car where we're going to mount it, and then we'll see how much line we got. We might have to go to the store and get some more. Now that we got this back out of the car, we figured out, well, we put it in the car, we figured out what length we needed for our hoses, and didn't end up having to get any more hose, although ideally in the future I'll probably get a longer hose than this to put on this side, just to clean it up a little bit. I don't know if I've already mentioned, but don't use the clamps that are provided with this kit. They do not work well. What you're going to want to get is these Nitro 4x4 fuel injector hose clamps from AutoZone. They work great, and I've never had an issue with one of those on. So, just to make it easier, went ahead and pulled it back out of the car, and we're going to go ahead and get our connections on good and tight. That way we don't have to mess with tightening them up while they're in the car. So this line here on the left, I'm going to feed string around the back of the radiator. Alright. And that'll plug right in like that. And this one here, I don't really like it, but for the meantime, since I don't feel like buying any extra, and we're not putting that cover back on anytime soon, we're just going to run it straight up and above, and then we'll have our air duct, power duct, whatever the hell you call that thing, covering it up. So, now mind you, this ain't the best way to do it. This is the cheapest, easiest, most effective way to get this done. Hot Rod Nationals, this is this week, and I'd like to drive my cars, so we're going to get it done. Alright, as you can see, it's sitting right down in there. I got this line coming from the trans-cooler, as you can see, coming around the radiator. And it's going to go right here and plug straight into where I cut. Then this one here is coming right up over. It'll lay in that little dude there, and of course it'll plug right in there. So we'll double clamp this. We'll do the same thing. Some people flare them. If you got a flare tool, you can get it in there. Great. All that's going to do is help you out. But I haven't flared one yet, and I haven't had any issues. As far as these cooler go, the knockoff 40K cooler, if it can withstand a 6,500 pound vehicle towing campers up grades and hills and 100-degree weather, I think it'll be fine cruising around in a Corvette and making a couple pulls. So that's bigger than most people put in there, probably double the size. So you won't have any issues with cooling. And you know, just watch your trans temp gauge if you think so, but I think it'll be just fine. Towing my camper with this cooler, I don't go over 170 degrees. And I used to push temps of 230, 235, and I'd start, you pretty much start messing your fluid up at that point. So this thing right here should work just fine there. And you ain't got to take the front bumper off, and you ain't got to mount it to the diff and do an E-fan and all that crap. You just cut it. This is the most simple, cheapest, effective way to do this. So once you got those clamped on, this is what you should look like. So your new lines just right there into your existing trans-cooler lines that you cut. Cooler sitting right down in the front of the AC condenser. There's a little flap down there. As you can tell, you got to lift that up a little bit and it'll sit right down in there. But now that you got that done, I'm just going to kind of tuck that, zip tie that, and then put my air duct back on and put this thing back together. And then we'll mount it from the bottom, and then we'll top the fluid off in the back. Couple days ahead of time now, but got the hood back on, got the transcooler installed, got my fuel system fixed. Now I forgot about securing that transcooler, so this is what we're going to use. Self tapper. It's like a little 1-inch one, and of course our little impact driver and socket. And then got the transmission topped off. What we used for it was a Harbor Freight transfer pump and 15/16 socket. You just get under the rear, driver's side rear of the car, and on the side of the trans pan, right there, is your fill plug. You gotta have the car running and have it in park. That way the pump's circulating, I guess. And then just fill that thing up like a differential until it starts to come back out. So let's hop under here and see what we can do with this real quick. I don't have anybody helping me, so I got 2 extensions here to make this a little easier for when I pull this flap back. But as you can see, I just self-tapped it up in there on each side, and that thing is tight. I mean, it ain't going anywhere. You don't have to worry about that flapping or moving around or rubbing anything.